Alright, let's talk politics. Medieval politics, specifically. The most complicated subject on the planet, and this is one of the most complicated parts of that subject, the War of the Roses. So, the War of the Roses was fought between Lannister and Stark as they fought over the Iron Throne. Wait a minute. Okay, that is Game of Thrones. Lancaster and York fighting for the English throne. Makes more sense. Now, first, I need to tell you about the 100 Years' War, because it is somewhat important. The 100 Years' War was King Edward IV trying to take the throne of France, and this war went on and was actually ended in the later parts of the presentation. What you need to know is, from where we start right now, France and England war. Now, the best place to start from now is the King Henry, his name King Henry VI. We have skipped several generations and all sorts of political nonsense. You can ask me about that later if you're curious, but I can barely wrap my head around it, and I'll confuse myself if I try to speak it here. So, Henry, Margaret, they get married. Margaret's a French princess. And before Margaret got married, the king was advised by a man named York. York is his last name. There's no first names for any of these people. This is the Flower of York. And Henry was a Lancaster. Here's the Flower of Lancaster. And this is why it's called the War of the Roses. Is these two houses eventually end up clashing. But for now, incompetent King Henry VI and his advisor, who is York. And then Margaret comes, and she convinces her weak-willed husband to kick out his trusted advisor and replace him with the corrupt person, because Margaret is also very corrupt as well. So this new guy is named Somerset. And Margaret and Somerset, with no supervision, the king doesn't care about his country much. Well, he does, but he's incompetent. And so these two create a lot of problems in between Henry's incompetence and these people's rampant corruption.
C is for corruption.
They lose the War of the Roses. This causes the king to go into complete mental breakdown, and then York re-enters the story and becomes the Lord Protector and tries to undo everything Margaret and Somerset did. The title of Lord Protector came because the king couldn't take care of himself, and so they hired this guy to protect him. And he uses his power to undo all the bullcrap. When the king recovers his position, and York gets banished. Like, he's just gone. York is deposed from his position because the king is now listening to his corrupt wife. And Somerset is released from his prison, and it seems like everything goes back to the way it should be. But York is not going to take this lying down. And so he and his ally Warwick becomes important, remember his name. They have a battle, and they fight this battle in a small town, and this battle results in Somerset's death, and York being reinstated as the Lord Protector. Now Somerset was a Lancaster, and he dies in this battle, so it is a Lancastrian defeat. It's a defeat for the crown, because, well, the crown is the king, but he's being controlled by his wife. So he goes into another mental breakdown, and York has just won the battle. So Warwick gets set up again as the Lord Protector. Yay! And the same events play out. King recovers, Margaret gets mad, York leaves. But this time, York goes into hiding, and Warwick rallies an army and fights the king in an extended campaign. And he actually manages to claim London, because it is London at this time. The capital is London and always has been for the longest time. So he claims the capital. Margaret is sent running And this is Warwick doing the fighting. And then York comes back, because Warwick doesn't want the throne, and names himself as heir to the throne. He doesn't take down Henry, the incompetent. He just sets himself up as the heir. However, there's already an heir who ran with Margaret's child. And so Margaret is livid about York's bullcrap. And so now York is in control of the king again, and York is the heir to the throne. But Margaret goes to the King of Scotland and does a deal to create an army, takes that army, another extended campaign, finds her husband under a tree on the battlefield, and then claims London, and undoes everything Warwick and York worked for. Again. So, yeah, and now the Lancasters have to establish their rule. They have to go all over the place and, like, do tour and, like, kiss babies. I don't know. Whatever they need to do to establish their rule. So they leave London. York, you know, has died at this point. He's gone. No more him. And his son... So basically, that's what ends the campaign. Warwick is dead, and they leave London... No, York. York is dead. The Lancasters leave London. Warwick, still alive, finds York's son, Edward. They go to London, find a priest, and then Warwick basically asks the priest, go talk to the crowd, and the priest is like, who do you want for your king? Corrupt Margaret and incompetent Henry, or Edward? Everyone screams back, King Edward, King Edward. And so, yay, Edward wins, they have control of London, and... the Lancastrian armies are finally beaten back, and so now the victory is Edward and the war has ended. Wait a minute. So I just have to double check these things. Okay. Alright, yep, there's more. To help Edward consolidate the throne, Warwick tries to set up Edward with a French princess, but he has already fallen in love with a peasant widow, and they have a secret marriage. Thinking that Edward is too politically inept to be king, Warwick goes to the Lancasters to take down the king he's helped set up, but he wasn't going to set Henry on the throne, so he reaches out to... Edward's brother George to join with the Lancasters and become king instead of his brother. So Warwick, the Yorkist supporter, goes to the Lancasters with like, give me your army and I will set up Edward's brother on the throne. And they go and they invade England and they take the throne from Edward and now they're going to give it to George. But Warwick pansies out at the last minute and gives the throne back to Henry the Incompetent. Oh, boy. No. Oh, boy. So, now, Henry the Incompetent is in control, but Warwick is in control of Henry the Incompetent, and so the Warwick has the throne, and they get into another war, separately, a war against Burgundy, and then to end the war, the King of Burgundy gave an army to Edward, the guy who was kicked off the throne. He didn't die, he was just taken. So now the Burgundy soldiers are fighting for Edward, because if the King of Burgundy can take Henry off the throne, then the war is over. And so Edward attacks London again. That city has been through so much bullcrap. Boy. And then they attack, yeah. And then during the war, alright, yeah, Warwick is killed during the war that that Edward was reigning. Let's just make it simple. The war was ended by Warwick was killed by Edward. And then, so now, everything is fine. Well, Margaret returns from France. She's been in France this whole time. Margaret is back. And so now she rallies her soldiers and attacks Edward again, except this time, Henry the Incompetent and his son are killed. And we're finally done with this guy. And then Margaret is sent to France. She is sent back to France. She's captured in the battle, and her father, the King of France, ransoms with her. And so... oh boy, yeah. So now Edward has finally secured his role, and the war is over. Except, let me just make sure. It's Margaret again. So, what needs to be clarified is, Edward, he does claim the throne and lasts for a while, but then when he dies, there is a man who comes, and this man is named... give me a second. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, after the death of King Edward, his brother Richard, so this is another brother, betrays him in his death and says none of his kids are legitimate heirs because of the secret marriage with the widow person. And so, yeah, and so none of his kids would... all of his kids were made to disappear. No one ever saw them again. And so Richard could become king. But then Margaret comes back into the picture. She had another son in France named Henry Tudor. Yeah, another frickin' Henry. And he came to England and fought another extended campaign, eventually taking the throne. Now, the thing with Henry Tudor is he was Margaret's son, and he was also a descendant of King Edward, who started all of these shenanigans with the 100 Years' War. So he had a legitimate claim to the throne, takes London, kills Edward, and then everything is about to collapse, so he marries a Yorkish princess, and then the throne ends up to House Tudor. And so he is a Lancaster, his wife is a York, and he's only a descendant of Lancaster, so after all of this bullcrap, 100 years of war and chaos, the winner is both houses.
Back in Buffalo, the rookie quarterback with his work cut out for him, Davis Mills. That's a tipped pick interception. Just saw one of those by Justin Fields. Davis Mills picked off for the second time in the first half. Look at rookie quarterbacks. It's not been the year to have a rookie quarterback.
So, any questions?